3 of 5 for the grief yoga. Tonight we're just gonna do pretty much everything in our chair or standing. Um, so if you need to go grab a chair, you can do that. And then we're also gonna need either a belt, or if you have like a therapy band that's a little stretchy, that would be good as well. So you can start seated in your chair. And then I want you to come to the edge of your chair so that you're not leaning against the back of it. And then maybe you just start to close the eyes. And start to tune inward. Letting the focus shift from the day to the practice for the next hour. Starting to notice the breath. As you take your inhale, filling up the belly space. And a slow exhale, letting the air escape naturally. Inhale and exhale. Not changing the breath right now, but just becoming aware of it. And as we start to come into tune with the breath, count the inhale. See how long it takes you. Maybe it's 4, 8, 10 seconds. And then see if you can match the inhale to the exhale. So however long you inhaled for, take that same time to exhale. Continuing this even breath. We're going to continue to add to the breath. So you take the inhale, keeping it the same length, and then hold it at the top. Exhale for the same length, and hold it at the bottom of the exhale. So you can imagine like a square. You inhale, hold, exhale, hold, all for the same amount of time. This might be a challenge to hold the breath. And if it is, even back down the time. Good. Returning to your natural breath. I'm going to read a quote that is from the philosophy of yoga. And I invite you to just take it or leave it. You can take parts of it, you can take all of it or none of it. But it goes like this. What is it that dies? A log of wood dies to become a few planks. The planks die to become a chair. The chair dies to become a piece of firewood. And the firewood dies to become ash. You give different names to the different shapes the wood takes, but the basic substance is still there. If we could always remember this, we would never worry about the loss of anything. We never lose anything. We never gain anything. By such discrimination, We put an end to the unhappiness. So to me, this quote is just saying everything that already is already in this realm of life that we have. And so as we lose people, we lose their physical body, to me, and not their soul. So whatever your belief is, you can start to shift and mold this quote into your beliefs if it fits. Then we're going to take this quote and let that kind of thread the way through our practice. And we're going to lead up to tree pose. You don't have to do it right now, but I'm just going to show you so you have a sense of what we're working towards, since we're talking about the wood and the trees. And I think trees being a good sense of life, vitality. This is tree pose. There's different variations of tree pose. Okay, so this is what we're going to work towards through the whole class. And I want to leave you with one last thought before we get into the physical practice. And that is, our body is our spacesuit. So again, for me, and my thought of when I saw this is we come into this world, onto this planet, and come into this body. Our body is here so we can survive on Earth. Without it, we could not breathe, we could not move our body, we could not function. And so when we get rid of the spacesuit, our body, we die, we pass. We still have our soul that can live on in another way. So our body is our spacesuit. We can feel it, we can move it, we allow it to function. So that's going to be our main focus today, is becoming more aware of our spacesuit, but then also what's inside of our spacesuit. I think we often forget that there's more to us than our physical body. So I hope that gives you a little bit of comfort as you grieve your loved ones. To me, it gives me a little bit of comfort, but I know it could also be the opposite, so I kind of recognize that as well. So I'll try to weave that in through the practice tonight. So we did our breath, and we're still at the edge of our chair, and I want you to feel your feet on the ground. Maybe you have a blanket under you, maybe it's your rug or hard floor. And then just play with where it's comfortable. Do you like the wide stance, the narrow stance? Do you need to scoot out so you feel the feet a little bit more on the floor? Then I want you to imagine there's 4 points on the bottom of your feet. So the inner edge of the heel, outer edge of the heel, the ball of the inner foot, and the outer edge of the foot. And like you're making an impression in the sand, you try to press all 4 points of those onto the ground of each foot. And maybe you have to roll the feet in and out, backwards and forwards, to really get a sense for those 4 corners. You might have to press your feet into the ground a little bit more, or maybe back off. So as you press all 8 of those corners into the ground, you feel yourself connecting to the earth. Imagine the roots of a tree going through the ground, letting that be your support for the rest of the practice. You're nicely supported and grounded. That's going to have that energy flow through the rest of the body, allowing you to feel stable and safe and moving the rest of you. So keeping that connection, we're going to move into the arch and flatten that we've done in the past practices. But as you're here on the chair, you can maybe imagine your pelvis as a bowl. So you have your hips on the side, the pelvis comes down below, and it's like a bowl. I want you to imagine this bowl has water in it. And we're going to start to rock that bowl a little bit, not spilling all the way out, not spilling all the way back, but just a nice gentle flow. So I like to place one hand on my belly sometimes and one hand on my low back, just so I can feel that pelvis rocking. Then we're going to start to go forward. So we're spilling the water forward, tilting the hips so that you have an arch in the back. You feel the sit bones start to roll forward on the chair. And then easy does it, come back to neutral. A couple more times that way. Rolling forward with the hips. Low back starts to arch. And as you do that, you feel the muscles along the spine start to contract, get a little bit shorter. And then you come back out of it. 2 more times at your own pace, coming into that arch. Feeling how the corners of the feet shift, if at all, when you come into this arch. Can you stay connected? Come back to the breath here. Take an inhale in through the nose. Exhale through the nose. Let's come into the opposite direction. So this time, you're tilting the pelvis back, so your bowl is spilling towards the back line of you, the water which you go backwards. And you're contracting, making the belly muscles shorter. Back to neutral. Sensing how that shifts the tailbone and shifts the sit bones on your seat. Tuck the tail, belly muscles get tight and short. Come back to neutral. 2 more times. Focusing on that connection to the ground. Going back to neutral when you're ready. So if you still have this image of that bowl full of water, as you come back to neutral, you should have the evenness of the water. It shouldn't be leaning towards the front or the back of you. But that water is still and even inside that pelvis bowl. Your sit bones are even on the chair, and you feel supported through the spine, through the legs, grounding down. And so as we start to become aware of this spacesuit, our body, as I'm going to call it, just be conscious of the space that you take up, right? You can feel the inner and outer thighs. You can feel your hips. This is the space that your body, your spacesuit, takes up. But what is inside that spacesuit as we dive deeper into this practice? Okay, staying here, you can shake it out, maybe do a couple big arching flattens. We're going to come into a seated twist. And so for this one, it's nice if you have that strap or band. And you're going to place it around yourself. And I like to place it like right where my bra line will hit the bottom of my bra line. And have the elbows tucked in towards the side. And we're going to keep the head in line with the rest of our body. So as we start to twist, make sure that the head stays neutral with the trunk. So elbows are tucked in, arms are out at an angle a bit, and we're going to twist towards the right. So twisting from where that strap hits, you start to twist open. Coming back to neutral. So from here, we want to focus on twisting from the spine and not from the hips and moving the knees. So see if you can keep the hips grounded through the chair and the knees facing forward. And we're just moving from the trunk. So you won't go very far probably in your twist. But the strap gives you a sense of where you should be twisting from. Twisting towards the right, keeping the head neutral. A couple more times, taking it nice and slow. Notice if you hold the breath at all while you're twisting. And if you do, back off from the twist. Don't go as far. But let's take it in the opposite direction, going towards the left, twisting from the spine. And as slowly as you can back to neutral. Feeling each vertebrae starting to twist one on top of the other. Taking it a couple more times to the left. And then you can gently go back and forth. Right, pass through the middle, left. Keeping the head as neutral as you can with the spine. Focusing on the trunk. Again, notice those feet. Are they staying connected to the earth? Or are they wanting to dance around a little bit? Good. Back to neutral. Go ahead and drop. We're going to keep this strap handy so you can just leave it close by or around you. And we're going to bring the arms out to the side. So imagine you have this big beach ball that you're holding. And as you start to squeeze that beach ball, we're going to focus on the scapulas, the shoulders, how they're moving across the back as we start to hug that beach ball in. As we bring the arms closer together, starting to wrap around the self. You feel the scapulas moving further away from each other, further away from the spine. And sometimes it even feels nice to just pause here, giving yourself a little hug, noticing the touch and how it feels. And easy does it open up, making that beach ball bigger and bigger. As you make your beach ball bigger and bigger, are you straining the breath? As I start to get further away from my midline, I tend to want to brace my breath and tighten down the ribs and the muscles in my belly. So I'm not going to go as far. I want my breath to stay even. And then come back in. And just play with this motion. How am I connected to my breath? And how am I connected to the body? In and out. As we move further into the practice, getting to tree pose, we want the stability in the belly coming from the muscles and not strain coming from the breath. So again, I'll say that. We want the stability to come from the muscles, not from straining and tightening the belly from the breath. So we want to become aware as we move the arms, what the difference is between those two things. If you have your strap or your band, you can try it with that, in and out. If you have a belt, that's not obviously as much give, but you can still get a sense for coming out, having a little bit of tension as you get to that edge of the strap. Noticing the strength it takes to pull the strap apart, bringing those shoulder blades closer together. Relax, shake it out. If you take a couple more passes, or if you're done listening to the body and what feels good. Okay. The next movement is going to be with the arms again. And so for tree pose, the full expression of the pose is to have the arms up overhead in kind of like a Y shape. So for me, when I do this, I automatically compensate to lift my arms. I come in and arch my back. We want to have that neutral pelvis, neutral spine. So we're going to start to play with where the edge of our range of motion is before we go into that whole pose. So I'm going to grab my strap. I like to have my arms a little bit wider than shoulder width to do this, but you can play around with what's comfortable for you. So starting the strap down by the thighs, arms are relaxed, and then slowly lift it overhead. Feeling those four corners of the feet. And what's that range of motion? You can breathe comfortably. Arms come overhead. You don't need absolutely not over the head, but if you can come up without arching the back to that full, to your full range of motion. Everybody's range of motion will not be the same. I'm playing with this up and down. If you get to that edge, where you feel like, I'm starting to compensate in different areas, maybe the mind starts to wander, it gets too difficult, just go an inch up and down. You're pushing those limits of the range of motion in your mind, in your breath, in your spacesuit, but without going past that point of too much. Good. One or two more passes. Okay. Roll the shoulders. Okay, we're going to do one more movement with the strap or TheraBand that you have. And so I know in the last two classes, we've done a lot, not a lot, but each class we've done like the internal and external rotation of the leg. And so we're going to play with that a little bit and add to it, because when we come into tree pose, essentially you want the leg to lift as well. So go ahead and place your band or your belt under the foot. And we're going to play with that internal and external rotation. So this time you kind of have a guide using, go ahead and keep the left leg bent so that those four corners of the feet are on it, and scoot all the way to the edge of your chair. And coming from the hip, that joint, start to roll in and out. And when you feel comfortable enough going out, it doesn't have to be very far with the toes pointing out. The femur is your rolling pin. Relaxing the foot. See if you can start to bend the knee. And you're not pulling with the arm. You're having the hip flexor be the guide. This is just here for extra support so that you're not going all willy-nilly with the leg. But the hip flexor is pulling this leg in at that external rotation. It doesn't have to be very far. That was too far for me. So I like to bring one hand to my hip flexor here and see if you can pull it in. This is probably good for me. I have hardly any bend to my leg, but at that external rotation, that's plenty for my leg to bend. And then relax it back out. Come back to neutral. You can try it again. The femur, this big bone of the thigh, starts to roll out. And a slight bend to the leg. Coming in. Back out. One or two more times. Good. When you're ready, excuse me, my voice is going, but we'll go to the other side and put it on the left foot. Again, this strap or belt is not doing the movement for you. You're not pulling on it to get the leg up further. It is just there for extra support. So, hand to that hip flexor, the hip area. The femur, this thigh bone is your rolling pin. So if you imagine the rolling pin, it's starting here and going outward. The foot just happens to follow along and then back to center. Out and in slowly a couple times. And when you feel comfortable with that external rotation, you can start to add guiding from the hip flexor, bending the knee. You can glide that heel in on the ground and then back out. And back to neutral before you start the movement again. Gliding the heel, bending the knee. So in your body, you get that sense for how far you really bend that knee. I think in a lot of typical yoga poses that you would see, or a lot of typical yogis that you would see doing the tree pose, they're forcing the foot up as high as they can with their arms and using the levers to forcefully do that. And that's not the goal of the pose. We want it to come as naturally as possible for the end pose. Okay. So from here, we're going to stand up, but we're going to stand up mindfully. So pressing through all the corners of the feet, you have 4 on each foot. You're going to start to hinge forward, keeping the spine neutral, pressing through the 4 corners. Rise up. Pressing through the 4 corners. Maybe you try that again. Sitting back down again. Root down. Feel those feet and all of that energy going down as you come back to the chair. Lean forward and sit back. Good. Pressing through the 4 corners. Hinge at the hips. Letting those 4 corners root down. Stand up and rise. Nice. Okay. Keeping those 4 corners, if that's a comfortable spot for you. For me, that feels really good. And I'm not gonna shift what's happening there. But if you need to, go ahead. I am gonna get a drink, so I lied, but excuse me. Okay. So rooting down, we're gonna come into hip hikes. So it's very common in the tree pose to kind of like let your self prop out. So my boss always calls this the flamingo pose because we all stand like this. You know, you've seen somebody standing in line at the grocery store, like with that sassy hip. We want to keep the pelvis full, nice and neutral. Okay. So we're going to test the limits of this hike, this little sassy hip, and then find the neutral position so that we know what it feels like. So rooting down in the feet, I like to bring my hands to my hips, like where my belly button is, right across, out to the side. So our waist here, where our hands rest, is gonna start to shift. Let's start with the right hip and come up to the toes of that right foot. And as those toes come up, the right hip lifts and the waist on the right side starts to get shorter. And then back down. A couple more times. Hip comes up. Come into those toes. And here you can feel those 2 points of the foot on the right foot. Do you feel as stable here on the 2 points as when you go down, grounding through the 4 points? Feeling more connected, more rooted down. Come back up. Pausing here. Noticing if the weight is equally distributed through all of the points, or if you're leaning forwards, backwards. And then noticing the difference between the right and left side. Let's come into the left side. Come into the 2 front points of the ball of the left foot, onto those toes, hiking the left hip up towards the armpit, making the left side shorter, and back down. Up. Are you as stable, or is your weight starting to shift in ways that feels a little bit uncomfortable? And back down. 2 more times. So this time the water is spilling out of the sides of that pelvic bowl. Good. Shake it out. This is my fun, like, I'm a hula dancer. Good. Okay. So as I was saying before, you want that stability to come from the muscles of engaging the core. And so my best way for you to feel that is to imagine like someone's gonna come punch you in the gut. Not a very nice feeling. But when you do that, you kind of feel that initial engagement of the core. So engage, relax. Engage. Someone's going to punch you in the gut. But I'm still able to breathe fully here. The diaphragm is still working. And I'm not holding my breath. I'm engaged and I'm talking. Okay, so go ahead and relax the abdominal muscles. So that's part of the stability when we come into a balancing pose. The other part is that stable leg grounding you is the glutes, okay? So as you stand here, you might have your chair off to the side of you. And I'm gonna have my left hand holding the chair, and my right foot is gonna come a little bit off the ground. If you have like a book or something just to lift you an inch off the floor, or a mat or something, that's helpful. I could have gave you something so that you just have a little bit of extra room to let this leg dangle. So as you come into this, you're going to bring this right leg back. As you bring that right leg back, this glute, the right glute, should tighten a bit. So then go ahead and relax, letting the foot come back to the ground, and relax the glute. So sometimes this is a really hard muscle to get into. So maybe you need to tap it or have your hand placed on the muscle, and then see if you can engage the glute before you bring that leg back. And then come back and relax. Try this a couple times. Engage just the right glute. And then you can come up to that side. So I'll turn my chair so you can see me. So before, when we were sitting in the chair, we were working on that external rotation of the leg. So you can roll the rolling pin out, and then you slowly guide that leg up, coming into that external rotation with the bend in the knee. Let it dangle back down and relax. So you can play between those two. Lift it. That's the hip flexor coming up. Let it relax. Engage the glute to go back. So you're playing with the handoff of the hip flexor glute. Good. Step off your prop or book or whatever you have. Shake it out. And we can come to the other side. So this time your right hand, right foot is holding onto the chair and standing on your prop or the floor, letting the left leg dangle. And we're gonna come into that back. I'm just gonna turn so you can see me. So the glute on the left side, we need to wake up a little bit. Squeezing the glute, bringing it back. And relax. So this is a really hard movement, and if you don't get it right away, don't worry about it. Just start to bring it to your awareness a little bit. If you're able to consciously control this large muscle area. Bring it back. Let it dangle and relax. And then we can play with the front side whenever you're ready. So it's dangling, external rotation out, hip flexor engages, slight bend. And then back and forth. I'll give you a little bit of time to play with that movement. One or two more passes of that. And then we're ready to put it all together for tree pose. So the tree, the life force, So if you're ready, we're going to root through the left foot. So really feeling all four corners of that foot. And you have your chair next to you, so feel free to use that for extra stability. But go ahead and come into that left foot a little bit. And again, remember, we're not popping out that hip. So trying to keep the pelvis as neutral as possible. And for me, this is enough. I just rest my my toes on the floor. And it doesn't even have to be connected, okay? Because then look what happens to me. I automatically pop out. So maybe it's comfortable to have the foot out, resting away from the other leg, but you can play with the distance, where it lands, but you have this external rotation to that right leg. You feel strong in the left glute, that's stabilizing you, and strong in the core. If you feel good here, you can start to add the arms. So you have the combination of the beach ball arms and a combination of lifting the arms overhead. So find that place that feels comfortable. You can have your hands come together. But just like everything, we started from something super small, like we did all the little seedlings leading up to this bigger creation. It was still the same thing inside of that seed. It just starts to take on different forms. So we took on many different forms of this tree pose and broke it down into different parts to lead up to this creation that we know as the tree. So go ahead and come out of it. So I think that's a great analogy of the beginning, the quote that I'll read again in a little bit, is that our life takes on different forms. This yoga practice of tree took on many different forms. It's just what we recognize as this body, our spacesuit. Okay, let's do the other side. Grounding through the right foot, feeling all four corners of the right foot. External rotation of the left leg and a slight bend. Where does it feel comfortable that you can keep a steady pelvis? Engaging through the core, the right glute is your stabilizer. Does it feel good to start to beach ball the arms out and up as you start to grow? And you can sway in your tree, right? The trees are swaying in the wind. You're not completely still. The breath moves us. And go ahead and relax. I'll give you a little bit of time to play with that one. You can try the right side, the left side again, if you please. But whenever you're ready, we'll meet back sitting in our chair. And so for me, I'm at my job, I don't sit very often in a chair, but if I'm working at a desk or something, I like to have something under my feet, either a blanket or like yoga blocks or something stacked up, so that I am in this like proper alignment with my body, and I can feel that groundedness evenly through my feet in the ground. So if you have a blanket or something, feel free. I just put one under my feet. We're gonna do one more movement before we come into our final rest. So this one is just to kind of relax the head and shoulders a bit. So again, you're not leaning back in your chair, but you find that neutral pelvis, neutral spine, and just start to drop the head towards the left shoulder. Easy does it. Back up to center. Over to the right. We're not trying to strain the neck, so don't stretch it out as far as you can. Just going back and forth between the two. Moving back to center. So I'll give you a couple options for the final rest. You can either stay in your chair and set yourself up comfortably, sitting. You can lay down on the ground like you normally would, or because we have the chair, you can set yourself up on the chair with your legs up on the chair. And I even like to get my band or my belt and tie it around my thighs so that my legs don't have to do the work of staying upright. And so this could be an option for you as well. So go ahead and take the time to get yourself set up. I'm gonna dim my lights. If you have lights that you want to shut off in your space, go ahead. So I'll lead you through a meditation, and then I'll take you out of it when the time is over. But just one more time, I want to read you the quote of the yoga philosophy. And you can see if it sits a little bit differently with you now than it did at the beginning of the practice. What is it that dies? A log of wood dies to become a few planks. The planks die to become a chair. The chair dies to become a piece of firewood. And the firewood dies to become ash. You give different names to the different shapes the wood takes. But the basic substance is there always. If we could always remember this, we would never worry about the loss of anything. We never lose anything. We never gain anything. By such discrimination, we put an end to the unhappiness. Letting that sit with you, letting it sit with any emotions that come up with that. Letting yourself settle into the earth wherever you are. Feeling yourself root down. Feeling the sit bones of your body start to penetrate down to the earth. Feeling that connectedness to everything that already is and always will be. Feeling every outer edge of the body. Becoming aware of the space that you take up. becoming aware of the thoughts in the mind. Becoming connected and aware of the breath. Allowing this breath guide you deeper. Relaxing here. Coming back to the outer edges of your spacesuit, of the body. Feeling how deeply those roots sunk into the earth. And letting those roots stay connected as you start to bring some more awareness back into the space. Planning out how you're going to come out of this practice. Taking this with you for the rest of the night, through the rest of the week. Taking your time here. Deepening the breath. Wherever you are, maybe you start to rub the palms together. Feeling that heat. bringing them towards the heart center. I wish you all love, light, and happiness. Namaste.